Yeah. This is not going on. Evening. Narayana. Guru Maharaj. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Om Stapakaya Chadarmasya Sarvadharma Sarupine Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishna Te Namaha Om Jananim Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagatgurum Parapadme Tayostritva Pranamami Muhur Muhur Om Mangalam Gurudevaya Devye Matriksha Mangalam Mangalam Bhakta Brindebhyo Sarva Lokaya Mangalam Om Sarashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Ashmarachara prayantam vande gurum paramparam. Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Deva Maheshwara Gurureva Param Brahman Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. So we're continuing with our discussion of the Kali Sahashranama, of the 1,000 names of Mother Kali. 2-3 weeks ago, I think was the last time we did. 2 weeks ago, maybe. We did a very nice cluster of names, a very esoteric form of descriptions of Ma, that of she who sits on a corpse, who has earrings of corpses and girdles of corpses and like all that. We discussed some of the symbolism of that and some of the meaning that we understand from that. And the last name in that cluster was actually the first name of the following verse, following sloka. The cluster we read last week was mostly names from verse 16. And so the final name was Smasana-vasini, which was the first verse, the first name of verse 17. I include it because it closed that little section. But it is also, and we enter on a very different topic, but there is a connection. So we'll start with that name again. I'll read verse 17. Smasana-vasini Punya-da Kula-pandita Punya-laya Punya-deha Punya-sloka Pavini. So it starts Smasana-vasini. So she who is the one who dwells in the cremation ground. We discussed that last. But part of all the symbols of Ma Kali, many of the symbols of Ma Kali have to do with cremation grounds and symbols of skulls and bones and corpses, and so it has a lot of symbols of death, you could say. And so thinking about death is what we all end up at the cremation ground. All of us are going to die. And this is a problem, is that there's a very famous, many people know this verse from the Mahabharata. There is when the Pandavas, they're dying from thirst, and they go to, one by one, they go to a lake to drink, and there's some crane there. It says, before you drink, answer one question. I don't have time to answer your question. And one of them drank I forget the order, but one drank the water and dies. Another Pandava comes, sees his brother dead, and sees the crane. He says, I'm thirsty. He says, oh, before you drink water, answer one question, or answer these questions, a riddle. He drinks the water and dies. So this goes on, 4 brothers dead. I think Yudhisthira is usually considered the wise one, so I don't exactly remember the story, but Yudhisthira, we'll say it's Yudhisthira. He comes to the water and he sees his brother is dead, and he sees the crane, and the crane goes, before you drink this water, please answer these questions. He goes, okay, ask. Right, and so there's a list of questions, but the one that's repeated again and again is considered the most famous, is that what's the most amazing thing in this world? Right? What's the most amazing thing? And so his answer, I forget the exact scene. It's a dramatically told, but he says that seeing death everywhere, people think they'll never die. This is the most amazing thing. So you see, not only like he sees his brother is dead, but he's like, no, I need water. Like, how did his brothers die? Or we don't even think like this. We put off. Even if confronted with death, we don't think about death. We don't think it's going to happen to us. But there's an important. This is in the West. We can see that death is covered over. We don't talk about it. We don't see it. Immediately, when somebody dies in the family, you call somebody immediately, and they take the body away. The next time you see it, it's either covered or reformulated, reconstituted for a ceremony, and then we're done. We don't deal with death. We don't think about death. But it's the only thing that's certain. So there's something about the cremation that we're all going to. There's one video, one of these like Origins of Yoga or those that set of videos, where they're interviewing some Tantric who lives at the cremation ground, and he says everyone will come here. Right. There's much teaching in the Smashan. Everybody's the same here. Everybody will come here. Right. And so when you think about death, and you start thinking about how we're living our lives, what's the purpose of life? Are we doing the necessary things to reach the purpose, to attain the purpose of life? So there's like the experience or the confrontation or the meditation on death has its own power. We've discussed some of the symbolism of Kali to be symbolic of other things, but it's also symbolic. Death is symbol of death, right? A corpse is a symbol of a dead body. It's also, that's the fact. We give it all kinds of tantric things, symbolic things. It's a union of Shiva and Shakti and the manifest and the unmanifested and Kundalini, and we give it all those. Yogis love to give these type of meanings, right? But the primary meaning when you encounter is there's some cremation ground or a cemetery. Right, these are things that we have to come a little bit in. We have to be a little I'm trying to depress everybody, but we have to be a little sober. There's a letter of Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda, when he signed his letters, he sometimes put a verse from the scriptures like that. And one of them, he quoted some Upanishadic verse, I think, and he says, if you want to succeed in business, think you'll never die. Right, and if you want to realize God, think that the claws of death are already in your hair. Right, it makes you very conscious. He wrote that. Yours sincerely, Vivekananda. That's a nice closing message. But it's good to think like this. Of course, we're thinking. We're getting older, so the thoughts of death are naturally more common. But getting older or not getting older, we don't know when we're going to die. We may die in 10 years, in 70 years, in 7 minutes, just now, today, tomorrow. We don't know. It's not certain. Right, Tushta Krishna, my friend, he used to say that we don't know if our next breath or our next life is coming. Right, we don't know what the next is. So that makes us not meant to scare us, but it's meant to make us become serious, and lead us, become a little serious about our spiritual life. So there's some just about that meaning of the symbolism of the smashan, and like this is just to make us encounter the reality. Fundamental part of reality, and therefore how we live our life matters, because how we die matters, right? And also what we attain after death also matters, right? In the Hindu tradition, we believe that how we live this life will generate our experience in the next life. And also what we're experiencing in this life were seeds planted in previous lives. Right, those seeds, have grown into plants and fruitified into our present situation. So we have to think about these things a little bit. Smasana-vasini, she who is eyes in the cremation ground. It's one of her names. So in the rest of those names, Smasana-vasini, Punyada, Kula-pandita, Punya-laya, Punya-deha, Punya-sloka, Pavini. So the name you hear a lot is Punya. That's mostly this cluster of names to do with Punya. And Punya is not exactly an English equivalent, right? We sometimes say it's merit, right? It's something like virtue, but not virtue, merit. It's a different thing. Virtue is a quality somebody has, right? You're a virtuous person. You're a good person. Punya is something you like the results of your actions. Good actions lead to good results, to punya, right? And therefore bad actions lead to bad results. And we call that papa. Right, punya and papa. And so papa is translated in English as sin. But sin's also different because what's the opposite of sin? If you think of punya and papa are opposites in Sanskrit. Right, and so we would have like virtue, the opposite of virtue would be vice, perhaps. Right, or goodness would be wickedness, if you were to think like this, right? But what's the opposite of sin? Right, there's no opposite of sin, right. So it's not in English. We have a weird idea of punya and papa in the Christian, Jewish, Judeo-Christian tradition. You could say the Western tradition. We have a very, in a certain sense, a little bit illogical. What's the opposite of it? We're told, don't be a sinner. Then don't be a sinner. Then what's the opposite of that? Right. So if sin is, so the opposite of punya means merit. Papa could be demerit, I guess. Is that a thing? Right, we don't have a good idea. We don't even have proper categories to discuss these things, right? But in Sanskrit, they have very clear categories. There's papa and punya, right? So good actions create punya, right? We create good results, and bad actions create bad results. It's a very simple thing, right? It's not you're a good person or a bad person, right? Your actions have results, and those results will affect you also. Those seeds are result. So this papa and punya are related to this idea of karma. In karma, we use karma in all kinds of crazy ways in the Western tradition. We borrow the term and put our own meaning on it, right? But karma means action, right? And karma means action. Smoky fire today. Maybe some more. Maybe bring this one down with the tongs and. The hot? Okay. That bit's top going down.
One more?
Yeah, you can put one of the birch ones, yeah. McGee. We lost our wood source. It closed for the season. Our cheap wood source, which is very good wood. I'm not crying because I'm a sinner. And these aren't tears of repentance. So nor of devotion. These are just cause and effect. Smoke creates tears. What were we saying? Papa. Oh, so punya, good actions create good results. Bad actions create bad results. Some actual notes. So I was saying karma means action, our actions, but every action has a result, right? So karma also means the results of actions. The results of actions are both in the form of merit or demerit, punya and papa, and they can be. We can get the immediate effects, or we can get the effects in considered a future life. So people say, "Oh, this is my karma. Why are you suffering?" Like the question is like a common question in a junior college theology course, or religion courses. Why do good things happen to bad people? Right? Well, actually, it's not a matter of being a good person or a bad person. It's what you've done and the results of those actions. And so, people have never done anything bad. We don't remember everything we've done, good or bad. Good things happen to bad people. Bad things happen to good people, because good people and bad people do good and bad actions. Those actions bear fruit, right? That's so this is just giving some background to this idea, the Hindu idea of punya, because one of her names is Punya. She's merit, right? Or virtue or goodness. You can say how you say it, but it means merit. I mean, we have a hard time with it. And everybody wants, with the idea that good actions lead to good results. We want good results, right? So we want the results of merit. We want meritorious results, right? But that requires good action to get good results, right? I was reading a little bit Paramacharya of Kanchipuram, right? He has a book called Hindu Dharma. He's a brilliant. He lived to be 104, 105, brilliant person. And he one line I just read. It just jumped out at me a few days ago. We want to consider virtuous and not sinners, yet we transgress the laws of morality and disobey divine laws. We want the fruits of virtue without being morally good or doing anything meritorious, right? We don't. So we want the fruits. We have to do those acts, based on dharma, not dharma. Now, in the Christian idea, we have sins, right, rather than bad actions. So what the sin is, it's very hard to define. Even you ask in the Christian theologians will have a hard time giving a pure definition of what people mean by sin, right? And a tradition that's quite obsessed with sin. Right, and because all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, the Bible says, right. So that's our condition. We're told, we're trained, and we're told from children and in school and by our friends and ministers and parents that we are sinners, right. So it's not only that we.
The spider.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Who was that?
Winthrop.
John Winthrop. Right. John Winthrop wrote an incredible sermon that he gave all through the United States. He traveled village to village, this is where the real hellfire and damnation came. This is the foundational theology of evangelical Christianity, a new form of Christianity developed in the new America, right? Where he described it like we're all, what is it? Spiders being dangled over the fire by an angry God, right? The fires of hell by an angry God. Now that's a very nice position to start. That we can start with that, right? And that would elicit, if you take that seriously, it elicits a very strong emotional response to get out. right? And that's where the born-again tradition started. Early Christianity did not have the born-again emotional release of a born-again experience. Like, oh my God, that's going to happen to me, but there's a way out. I believe it, and I'm free. That emotional response is almost that lecture was the foundation of the born-again tradition. You can see historically, right? So why are we being dangled over a fire by an angry God, right? Why is God so angry, and why do we deserve to be thrown into the fire, right? Because of something. We've done something horrible. No, actually, no. We're born this way. We haven't done anything horrible. Right. So why are we so horrible? He says, oh, but somebody in our past, not even us, right? A great, many times removed grandmother, grandfather, they did something really bad, right? And because of that, we're their children, and the sins of the father are passed down to the child. So they say, we are intrinsically, even without doing anything, we're in a bad condition. Jai Ma. Come. We're and therefore deserving of like this. So luckily there's a way out of that situation given in Christianity. But think about more than that. What did that say about our view of ourselves? We're intrinsically bad, not even because of something we did. That's what we are, and we're made this way. We're born this way. We're born sinners. Right, and worthy of extreme suffering, right? But God's very loving, so he comes up with a plan to get us out, right? But slightly simplification of the thing. But this is not. I'm not a Christian theologian, right? But that is a view of. So Swami Bhajanananda came to America in his opening talk at his opening second talk at the Parliament of Religions. He says that he says, quoting a verse in the Upanishads, he says, you are Amrita Putra, means children of immortality, children of nectar, children of bliss. Right? He said, let me call you by this beautiful name. I'm maybe not exactly quoting perfectly. And he said it is a sin to call a man a sinner. Right? It is a libel against human nature. Right? If there's any sin, it's a sin to call somebody a sinner. Why is that? Because a man is not, even if you've done, there's not a thing is bad action. Bad karmas lead to painful results, right? Selfish actions lead to alienation, and you can see that the spiritual situation we find ourselves may be the result of our past action, but that's not who we are. It's what we did. We experience the results of what we did, right? Right? Who we are is something very different. So Swami Vivekananda very boldly preached that we're divine. Right, we are children of immortality. We come in Samskrita Vedanta. We're God itself, the Supreme Brahman. Right, minimally we're children of God. Right, and children. It's like we're not just children of Adam and Eve. We're children of God. Right, it's like we're made in His image, her image, their image. Right, and they're perfect. He's perfect. She's perfect. However you want to conceptualize. Right, we're children of immortality. So our real nature is divine, right? Even if we make some mistake. Some people kind of say we prefer to say mistake. Bad action is out of ignorance, out of foolishness. We do a bad action, and that has a painful result, right? Let me go back to that. So Swamiji's point is that it's about our identity of the self. Who do we think we are? What's the view of ourselves, right? Now, these are names for Kali, right? And it'd be very dangerous to say, oh, Kali is sinful, right? Therefore that's our her. By saying that these are names for her, these are also our names, right? Kali is also the self. There's many names that will describe her as the self of all beings. We've described like she's become everything, right? So she's Punya, she's good, she's meritorious. She's also in the meritorious act, right? We do good, that's her, right? And she's goodness, right? Both things, right? And so when we do bad, right? That's also her, right? But we have to be a little careful. She's the duality. She's both sides of the. Remember we talked last week or 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, of how the one becomes many through the sword and how the one becomes the world of duality and the world of extremes of multiplicity. And we see her in the good and in our view of the good and the bad, in pure and the impure, But it doesn't mean that we like, oh, Ma's impure. Ma's bad. Ma's sinful. Ma's dirty. She's beyond the world of duality. She's from the realm of beyond good and bad, before pure and impure. Thakur used the term, there's sattva. Sattva is still material. The opposite of sattva, you have purity, the opposite is impurity, or passion, or ignorance. Right? But what the divine is, he called it Shuddha Sattva, pure purity, pure goodness, right? The transcendent purity. Right? In this world, we have purity and impurity. The divine is beyond good and bad. It's spectacularly good. How do I say? It's from Shuddha Sattva. Then in the material world, we ended up where the stratification, diversity, and duality of pure and impure and good and bad, like that. But she's pure goodness, and in the material world, that becomes separated in the full variety, from really really good to not so awesome. The whole spectrum. Right. But so that we have to say. So when we say that she's merit. That she's the result of merit. She is she's the source of merit. There's no. It just says punya. There's no. You keep adding words to it, trying to understand it, right? But also it means that's where we come from. That's who we are. Also, we're her children. We came from that, right? And there is some value. Swami Vivekananda says, and Sri Ramakrishna, he didn't make it up. Sri Ramakrishna said that to say I'm a sinner. If you're saying I'm a sinner, you won't become a sinner. What you think you become, right? That's the thing. Better to say, he says, what? I'm a child of the Divine Mother, right? What can sin? I've chanted her name. What sin can exist in me, right? Was one recitation of her name destroys. There's a verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Many years ago, we gave a class on it, right? It says that saying Krishna, these two syllables destroy more sin than are possible to commit. And we say Krishna, 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 and I'm a sinner, I'm a sinner, I'm a sinner, I'm a sinner. Of course, we have to say it properly, and but still we have to think of the mindset. That Swami Vivekananda, Sri Ramakrishna, was sometime when some Vaishnava Babas would come, and he'd critique 2 points every time these Vaishnava sadhus would come visit him. Right? One is that tend towards a fanatical view, sectarian view. Think this way is right, all other ways are wrong. He'd critique that. And then the other, this is true of many religions, but this sect is in Bengal at the time was famous for this, so he'd critique it. And the other point, he says that you're focusing too much on sin, right? You're the only ones not sinning, right? They're pure vegetarian, no onion or garlic, not stepping on ants, very, 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 very careful, right? And all the time you have your hand in your bead bag going, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare. I'm a sinner. You're the only ones not sinning, and the name is destroying. That's okay. We know the results. We're not living up to the perfect situation, but we're divine. We think how blessed we are, due to the merit of our past life, or by the great blessings of great souls. However we want to think, how we've got this, or just thinking of God is meritorious. It creates auspiciousness. It creates goodness, right? She is punya. So I wrote down. Hold on. Sorry. It's always good to read a little Swami Vivekananda from one of my favorite talks of Swami Vivekananda, called Praktivedanta Part 1. It's a series of 5 talks he gave over about a week and a half in London. In one word, this is the ideal. This ideal is that you are divine. Thou art that. Of course, that's a high state. We may not understand the highest point of Vedanta, but we can take it down to a practical. This lecture is called Practical Vedanta, right? Not the highest Vedanta. We can't. The philosophically and the state of consciousness that's representing, maybe it's imagined. But how do you make it practical? How do you make that Vedanta in daily life? Start is by changing what we think, right? So this is the thing. You are divine. Thou art that. This is the essence of Vedanta. After all its ramification, intellectual gymnastics, you know the human soul to be pure and omniscient. You see that such superstitions as birth and death are entire nonsense when spoken of in connection with the soul. The soul is never born and will never die, and all these ideas that we are going to die and are afraid to die are mere superstitions. And all such ideas... we can do everything. Vedanta teaches men to have faith in themselves first. As certain religions would say that a man who does not believe in a personal God outside of himself is an atheist, So Vedanta says that one who does not believe in himself is an atheist. Not believing in the glory of your own soul is what Vedanta calls atheism. Swami continues, it's not that look at how important I am, that's not theism. That's not, but means that the divinity, if you're denying your own divinity, this is the new religion, he says, the Vedanta. To many, this is no doubt a terrible ideal, and most of us think that this idea can never be reached. But Vedanta insists that it can be realized by everyone. One may either be a man or woman, a child, one may belong to any race. Nothing will stand as a bar to the realization of this ideal, because Vedanta shows it is realized already. We are already divine now. All the powers of the universe are already ours. It is we who have put our hands before our eyes and cry that it is dark. The famous line of Swamiji. Know that there is no darkness around you. Take your hands away, and there is light, which was there from the beginning. Darkness never existed. Weakness never existed. We who are fools cry that we are weak. We who are fools cry that we are impure. Thus Vedanta insists not only that the ideal is practical, but that it has been so, and that this reality, this ideal, this reality is our own nature. Everything else you can see is false, untrue. As soon as you say, I am this little mortal being, you say something which is not true. You are giving a lie to yourself. You are hypnotizing yourself into something vile and weak and wretched. Vedanta recognizes no sin, and recognizes only error, this idea of mistake. It says is to think that you are weak, that you are a sinner, a miserable creature, that you have no power and cannot do this or that. Every time you think that way, you rivet, as it were, one more link in the chain that binds you down, and add one more layer of hypnotism upon your soul. Therefore, whoever thinks he is weak is wrong. Whoever thinks he is impure is wrong, and is throwing a bad thought into the world. Swamiji continues. It's very strong words, but summarizes this. We always hear, children of mortality. This is a summary. This is a commentary on this idea that who we really are. So she is punya, she is virtue, she is merit, and so this gives so it's given in this verse, in this cluster of verses, for a reason, I believe. This is also a teaching. We have to, if we want. We're divine, she's divine, we're children of the divine, right? But we're suffering because of foolish actions, right? And so we can change our actions, right? We can, of course, what is good and bad and sin and not, this is changes over time and situations. What's good for one is bad for another. These are not absolute terms ultimately. It's in the realm of relativity. A king does and what a teacher does has to be on a different standard. We have different according to Varna and Ashram and stage of life and like this. The rules are going to be different, or the standards are going to be different. But we can change. Our Guruji always say you can change hell into heaven by changing your attitude, by changing your actions, by changing your view, right? By changing changing even your words. Guruji used to say. Right, you can change heaven into hell, hell into heaven, just by mental attitude changing. So these things are within our. It's showing that we can transform. She's punya, and in the Vishnu Sahashranama, there's two names that have punya in it. The 1,000 names of Vishnu. One is just punya. Again, he's punya. So who's punya, Kali or Vishnu? It's a big controversy, right? And punya kirtihi. Right, Punya Kritiri. So here, generally the commentaries in Vishnu Sahasranama, like I said, major commentaries have not been written in Kali Sahasranama to describe these things, what is meant. But the Vishnu Sahasranama has had lots of, even Shankaracharya wrote a commentary on it, and many people have written notes on it. And they usually say that he's Punya, because hearing about him destroys sins. Hearing about God creates merit. Merit destroys dismerit. Right, many times you'll hear, like in the Katamrita it says, a sin destroying, merit producing Ganga. Right, it's like bathing the Ganga creates merit and destroys sin. Right, hearing about God, thinking about God, saying God's name creates merit and destroys sin. They're the same act. Right, you create merit, sin is destroyed. Right. And vice versa, if you create bad action, then merit is also loss. Right? So punya, one who is hearing about whom all sins are destroyed, and punya kirtihi, one who's famous, whose merit, his good qualities, Vishnu's good qualities, or Kali's good qualities, are famous. They're known to everybody. And thinking about their good qualities, we get those good qualities. Right? Why is thinking about God merit producing? Because God is pure merit. Right? You think about light, you get light. Right? You can think of, like so thinking about the great, and we spend this all the time. Here's 1,000 names, and we'll take years to go through them. We've been reading the Bhagavatam, it'll take years to go through it. Right? We read the Kula-pandita, will take years to go through it and years to meditate and read about it. What is it? We're filling the mind with God. Right? God is Punya. He's the abode of, in the Bhagavatam there's one verse, it says that he's Subhadra. Subhadra is the abode of unlimited auspicious qualities. Right? So thinking about that the abode of unlimited auspicious qualities, we get those results, right? Those destroy all inauspicious qualities. Mangala, the verse we chant was the Hanuman Chalisa. Mangala Murati Maruti Nandana Sakala Mangala Mula Nikandana. Oh auspicious Mangala Murati, oh form of auspiciousness, Hanuman, meditating upon you, the form of auspiciousness, you remove inauspiciousness from its very root. Right? Thinking of God removes the opposite, but there's no opposite of God in the world of opposites. This we're talking about. So first name Punya, then Punya-da. Da means a giver. Punya-da. So he's a giver. She's a giver of merit. Right. So this is the same thing. We think of her, you receive merit. That's thinking of her, you receive merit. But also she's the giver of our merit, which means another way of thinking is that she's the one who administers, right, the fruits of our karmas, both good and bad, punya and papa. That you can say, God is meting out the rewards and punishments. Like we can think like that. It's another punya, but also if we begin to dig at this idea of punya-da, she's a merit and she's a giver of merit. To say she's the giver of merit, or the results, but also the giver of merit. Not just, it doesn't say punya-pal. Right, not just the fruits of actions, of good actions. She's the giver. She's the one who makes you do good actions. Right. So to a certain extent, we can say she's the one who makes us do bad actions. Right. This is then becomes in other words, she's the one she gives all actions. Right. So it's another way of saying that she's the ultimate doer. Right. And in philosophy, in the Gita, it says that everything that happens is just the gunas of Prakriti moving amongst the gunas of Prakriti. Nature is doing everything. That's one way of thinking of it. Or we get a little theological and philosophical. God's doing everything. And so who do we blame? If I'm doing good, if I'm doing bad, that's also God's doing all this stuff. All the good and bad happens is God. We know these are the seeds of our karmas. They're kind of like that, and we know that. But the devotion said, God's doing everything. Right? Everything that happens is God's grace. The good that happens to me is God's grace. The bad that's happening is God's grace. Right? But we also know that all the good and bad that happens to us are seeds that we planted in the past. Right? These aren't opposite views. One's describing the mechanics of cause and effect. The other's describing the spiritual reality behind it. That Ma is doing everything. Right. So, she's playing through the flow of the gunas. She's playing the world duality. She's playing as us. Right. And part of playing as us is not everything we do has to be. There's a story in the Bhagavatam where Brahma, his job is create the world. Right. Populate the world. Okay, I shall create the world. So first thing he does, he creates 4 beautiful little boys called the 4 Kumaras, right? He says, now you go and populate. Well, I'll create good wives for you. You have children and populate the world. And they look at this world and say, we have no interest in this world of birth and death, right? This world duality, right? And still little tiny naked boys, they go off into the forest to do tapasya. Right? No. Their answer is no. That didn't work. So Brahma has to create so many different creatures. He creates the Rudras, and finally he decides to create the Prajapatis. These are the Manus and Prajapatis. We met one of them yesterday, Devankidev Mahadev, Prajapati Daksha, of a colorful character. But so, I forget even why I brought this story up, but it's a good story to think about. It may come back to me. All right. So Ma is the ultimate doer. She's doing everything. And then the next name is so the next name will skip. I'm going to skip the name for a second and go to just mention this Punya-laya and Punya-deha and Punya-sloka. So again, we have three names as Punya, but there's a name stuck in here, right? And sometimes it could just be that it rhymed and they had a bunch of names they needed to put, then they put it in there, right? I tend to, because sometimes names don't seem to fit, right? But I think there may be a reason why the names are there, right? And so this is a very interesting name. It says Kula-pandita, right? So it's a very strange place to put it in the middle of a thing about virtue and merit, right? So Kula-pandita. Pandita means, we get the word, the modern day pundit, right? And the horrible use of it as the people who just talk about nonsense on TV as pundits, right? The old name of pundit at least could be used as a scholar, a real pundit, somebody who's a real expert and authority on something would be called a pundit, right? It's a title given to somebody who has great authoritative knowledge and training, and therefore the opinions that such a person would matter, right? so maybe that's where we get then punditry and things like that, the modern use of it. Although most of the pundits are talking, they're experts in something, but not about what they're talking about. They're hired to talk. It's different. So pandit means a wise person, a knowledgeable person, a scholar, a sage. In the Gita, it gives an interesting definition. It says Samadarshana Pandita. The pandit is one who has Samadarshana, which means equal vision. And then it describes, I don't remember the verse just now, I remember the last line, impressing everybody with my brilliant Sanskrit pronunciation. But the first part of the line says, one who sees with equal vision, what do we see with equal vision? It says, a learned and gentle Brahmin, right? A very good, probably from the priest class, intellectual priest. A gentle, learned, it means a good Brahmin, a cow, which is the holiest of animals, an elephant, which is the strongest of animals, right? A dog, of course we love dogs, right? But in Vedic culture, dog is considered the lowest of animals by purity compared to the cow, and a chandala, like an outcast. It refers it's almost like a dog and a dog eater. That's supposed to be opposite of the Brahmin. So this is a huge variety of purity of knowledge of a gentle Brahmin and a dog eater, right? And then a cow and a dog and an elephant. These are huge by strength and by purity and by intelligence and by education. They have almost nothing in common, right? But the pundit is one who sees them the same. Doesn't mean that they're the same, but he sees what is the same, because there's something within all these things. There are different manifestations of the one being, but there's one being behind it, right? So it's not that they're all identical. God had created all kinds of creatures. And karmas have created all kinds of adjustments to those creatures. But a pandita is somebody who sees with equal vision. So that's a definition we'll work with. So Kula-pandita. So that's in the early, if you go back to most people here weren't here during our early discussions of when we started the Sahashranama, maybe third or fourth talk. There was a bunch of names with Kula and Kaula, right? And Kula means, it's very hard. We spent a lot of weeks describing each name, trying to describe it. So Kula means family, and here also, like we described, that the Kali Sahasranama, this version of Kali Sahasranama we're reading from, is a mixed text. Most texts come from a tradition, some lineage, right? And Tantra is very much lineage based. It comes down in particular lineages. This is a Kaula text, you could say, right? But it brings in the knowledge of Dakshina Marg, right, the right-handed, conventional, more standard Hindu type of path, devotion to the Divine Mother, mantras, yantras, like this. Then it has also elements of, or symbolism elements of the Vama Marg, what we call the left-handed path, we were to say, which are a little more edgy, deal with all these things with the symbolism of death and things like that. And there's rituals that have sexualized meaning that are there that will bring out. These are things that are understood in the Vama Marg. And then there's the Kaula path or Kula path, right? And that's, if you were to say one's right and one's left, right? The thing that's left is in the middle, right? So Kula also means center. It has that meaning. It's a central path. It's neither, it's not super conventional and not way scary on the edges of reality. in society, something in between. So it tends to be simple devotional understanding of the Dakshina Marg, and it has some of the symbolism and some of the practices of the Vama Marg without just trying to be dark and scary, right? And trying to play the edge of the reality. No, it's integrated everything. It's in the center, right? We sometimes say, oh, the middle path is between what is enjoyment and renunciation is Buddha's middle way, and we use that language, right? But the middle path also is in the center of the right and left, the Ida and the Pingala, becomes Sushumna, right? So the Kaula or Kula Marg is the path of the Sushumna. It's the center way between these two extremes of Dakshina Marg and Vama Marg. It's the center path of Sushumna, which means the path of Kundalini, and Kula also means family, right? So it also means the path that's passed down through families. There's family lineages, right? Like we have certain texts of Dakshina and Vama Marga, but there's also there's lineages that have been passed down literally in the families. That's where it gets its form. And there's also the Kulas or Kaulas are like we can create our own Kula or Kaula, right? We have so it's a guru and his disciples or her disciples become a Kula, right? So a group, a family of practitioners, right? With the guru as a father or mother. Right, another. So all these things are meaning by this word kula or kula. So there's a little bit of philosophy behind. We've discussed it, and because the 1,000 names will have many things dealing with kula and kaula, and many practices and other names mentioned will have to be understood in the light of Dakshina Marg, Vama Marg, and Kaula Marg practices and philosophy. We give another little brushstroke about it, more than we've talked in the past, right? In the Kaula tradition or Kula tradition, like I said, Kula means family. So a family is a group, right? It's an expanded group. It's a closed but expanded group, right? So that's one way of saying this. The manifested reality is Kula, right? This world, like we're all here, but we're all manifested of something. Right, we're one thing that's become us, right? So the manifestation of that one thing, the manifestation is the Kula, right? So it's here saying this like so this reality, the creation is Kula or Kaula, right? The transcendent reality, that the one behind it, the ground of being that manifests as Kula, is called Akula, right? So that which is, I guess, means not family or not manifested or unmanifested. I guess the way we usually say it. Right, and then one of Ma's names that we came is Kaulika, right? She comes from the Kulas, you could say, right? Sprung from the Kula, right? So Akula, the unmanifest reality, has manifested the world. That one of Ma's names is Kaulika, she who comes from Kula, comes from Akula, like this, right? So Pandita, so with that idea that behind the manifested reality, and the manifested reality is a world of diversity and manifestation and multiplicity, I guess multiplicity will work, and the extremes of that multiplicity are we call the world duality. Between good and bad there's all variety, between light and dark there's all variety. So we say the world duality, we mean the world of multiplicity, or the Kula, right? The Akula becoming Kula, Kula Darshana, Kula-pandita is one who sees with equal vision. The sage, the one who perceives the one behind the many. This could be one interpretation of Kula-pandita, right? It could mean that she is the seer of the manifested reality, right? That means she herself, Kula-pandita, could also mean she is Akula. She is a manifest reality as well as the unmanifested Brahman that witnesses the manifest reality, right? So you see in the image of Kali in front in the temple, Ma standing there manifesting reality, right, and all its duality and glorious multiplicity, right? And Shiva is just laying there as if a corpse, right, in bliss, but he is looking at Kali, right? And we're always very careful. Don't put any flowers over his eyes. He shouldn't break the view. The Kali should always be able to see. Shiva should always be. Mahakal should always be able to see Kali. He's the eternal witness of the changing Prakriti, right? And so he's manifesting him, and he's the observer of that. So there's another way of saying he's Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha is the conscious witness. Prakriti is the changing material, vibrating nature. So it's another way of saying Kula-pandita. One of the ideas of Kula, this family, and Akula, the unmanifested reality behind Akula, is that it's Kula-Akula is also like a group that's beyond groups. That's a family that's outside the family, right? So another way, this again in the world of secret tantric circles and things like this. This is a group of disciples around a guru that's separated from society. It's a group. We're all members of our family. We're members of our society. We're members of our race. We're members of our religion, right? And our nation, like that. So, but the Kulas, they're separated even from that. Within all that, they have another identity. Then we have a lineage identity. I'm disciple such as a tradition, chant this particular mantra. Like that's another way of in the Kulas, right? So that socially, it's a group with its own norms, are built around a guru, right? But there's spiritually, that's the social structure of the Kulas or Kaulas, and spiritually, it's a union of Kula and Akula, of the individual with the absolute, of Shiva and Shakti, of the waking of Kundalini. All these are kind of the meaning, right? The waking of Kundalini. Another, only because I don't know when we'll get back to this name. Kula, as I said, means family or cluster. So the individual also has a family. We are also Kula. What's our family? We have, it describes in the Tantric scriptures. The Kashmiris have a Kaula line. The Kashmiri Shaivism has a Shaivite version of the Kula tradition also, and they describe that the individual has a family of 8. We have a secret circle here. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, we have 10, 12 people. Very good. We can start our secret practices. Right.
You made the cut.
Yeah, you made the cut. You're in. Our secret tantric practices, right? But the real secret, the real group, right, is earth, fire, water, air, ether, right? Mind, intellect, and ego. We have an 8-person group. Around the individual soul, there's these 8 families. These are the Kula. These are the manifested forms, and Akula, the self, the soul within it. That's true of the individual. What about the cosmic? The cosmic, Akula, Shiva, consciousness, Purusha, in like that, and his family that's manifested as is either 24 or 36. 24 are the 24 principles in Sankhya: earth, fire, water, ether. Then the 5 senses, the 5 organs that perceive the senses. We've gone into that in Sankhya, or the 32 tattvas. In the Shakta tradition, Tantra, the tattvas are enumerated differently, right? Either 24 or 54. So the individual has its unmanifested and manifested. We have the Akula, and then the Kula, the family, which are the thing that creates our body and personality, and the cosmos has Shiva and Shakti, or Purusha and Prakriti, manifested through the elements, right? So a Kula-pandita is somebody who knows that, somebody who perceives that, somebody who sees that. She's Kula-pandita, she's the ultimate one who knows it, right? But also it's a very deep idea. There's a famous line. Sri Ramakrishna would quote it sometimes, and he said, I consider this kind of our ideal of how to act as our sectarian. What sect do we belong to, right? We're a non-sectarian sect. We have no real sect affiliation, right? But it says Anta Shaktaha, Antaha Shaktaha. Inside, we're Shaktas. We're worshipping. This is the definition of the Kulas, of the Kaulika, the path, right? It says Bahir Shivayaha. Right, externally we're Shaivites. You can see looking very Shaivite-like, trishuls and like this, and Rudraksha beads and nice bhashma. You always have very nice bhashma on, right? It says, and sabhaya anga, and externally, in groups externally, or by behavior, you could say, either behaving or in public, right? It says Vaishnava Mataha. We act like Vaishnavas, right? So this is like the external, in other words, with the etiquette and behavior of Vaishnavas, which is the very, another verse says Vedika, right? It says the same thing, that internally we're Shaktas, externally we're Shaivites, and then by behavior, or in groups, in public, we are Vedika. It means we're following the Vedic tradition properly. This verse says Vaishnava, which is another way of saying Vedika. This is a tradition that's very on sattva guna, on devotion, on proper behavior, on duty, on puja, on all the sattvika practices, right? And he says this is the only verse I translated. Anta Shaktaha Bahir Shaivaha Sabhayanga Vaishnava Mattaha. Right, this is internal with like Shakta, external markings externally as Shaivite, but behaving like Vaishnava, right? And by external practice in public is we do even our practice, kirtan, puja, japa. These are our external practices, but inside we have a different attitude, the Shakta attitude. He says, with this internally Shakta, outside Shaiva, and behaving Vaishnava, the kaulas move unnoticed in this world, right? So it's like we can move this, and this is a very high. Of course, this is a particular sectarian verse about but I think Thakur liked this verse. I think he considered himself like that. He used it because he can fit everywhere, right? Right, but he says that internally we're highly Shaktified. Our understanding is we're Shaktas, But so this is anyway. It's a nice. Important verse because Thakur quoted it many, many times. So it's inserted in here, I think, for a reason, right? He who's Pandita is one who sees that which is the same. A Kula-pandita is somebody who sees the unmanifested in the manifest, right? Or who can see in the world of dualities. In the Gita, the cow and dog and Brahmin and dog eater. Right, these extreme ends of the realm of duality. So we're talking about punya, and the opposite of punya is papa. We have merit and dismerit, sin and virtue, sin and good, like that. But actually, she is the one who sees the same. Right, so we have to see also. We have to understand. Well, we have to know cause and effect are there. You want good actions, you want good results. We plant good seeds, and we're enjoying and suffering the results of our past actions. Right. Still, the truth is beyond that, beyond good and bad, beyond pleasant and unpleasant, beyond birth and death, beyond punya and papa, merit and demerit, sin and virtue, whatever like this, right? Because all those are in the realm of the manifest, but the unmanifested is shining through everything. It's become the manifested, right? Akula has become kula, and kula pandita sammadarshana pandita, and the pandit is one who can see that. So she sees that, and we should see that, right? And this is the greatest merit: is to see the divine even in the bad, right? Doesn't mean we should be bad. We should try to be good, because otherwise we'll suffer. If we do bad, we'll suffer. If we do good, we'll enjoy, right? But still, there's bad, right? And to see the divine in the bad, see the divine in the good, right? We thinking very luckily the Kashmir Shaivite Fellowship, the Lakshmanju's Academy, has been posting so many videos of Swami Lakshmanju's talks, and he'd talk, and there's one point it was tears in his eyes. He's saying, what about right now the Kashmiris? That time it was a unusually painful situation in Kashmir. It's again happening, very painful situation in Kashmir, but it was during the time of one of those extremely painful, basically war, and some people died and like this. And he says, oh, peace is divine, right? And he says, and war is divine. There's tears in his eyes, he says like that, and blissed out, right? He says, health is divine, and sickness is divine, right? He says, birth is divine, death is divine, right? But he's saying the divine is it's not like, oh, good is good and bad is good. We should enjoy bad. No, he sees the divine through it. He sees the ultimate good behind everything, right? I think this is what Kula-pandita means. And it's put in here to understand. We should understand she's meritorious. Meditating on her changes our karmas, brings good into our lives, destroys bad in our lives. But we should also see that which is beyond merit and demerit, like this. And then the next name, in the light of that name, gets a new meaning. Punya-laya. Punya-laya means she who, I would just say, alaya means to live in or dwell in. Laya also means to dwell in. So she who dwells in punya. So you want to see Ma, look in virtue. In virtuous action, she's there, right? Also a place, Laya also means a place. So a place where virtue is done, a good place, where people are doing good and people are chanting God's name and doing good actions and following Dharma and doing their duty. This is her presence. She's Punya-laya. So it means home, it means dwelling, it means rest. Laya also means to dissolve, right? So she's where even punya is dissolved, right? Even this duality of good and bad. While she's good, she also dissolves that reality. She dissolves that experience. It also means to destroy, right? You get into the longer, you open up a Sanskrit dictionary, keep going down, pick the words you like that fit your talk. Not saying I did that, but anyway. I would lie. No, because this laya, because we have laya yoga. Laya is an important term in like there's we say stristisiti vinashanam shakti bhute sanatani in the Chandi in the 90 Sutti, right? It says you are the power that creates, sustains, and vinasha destroys, and you are sanatani, you're the eternal reality behind it. In other words, you're kula and akula. The kula part is creation, destruction, and preservation. But there's another verse in the Lalita tradition. That's a verse very much a Kali mood. Lalita is the other side of the same reality. Sri Vijaya Jagada Trim Stristi Stiti Laeshwarim. She who creates, sustains, and dissolves. Right? Not destroys and pounds and cuts and spears and burns and throws in the garbage. Right? That would not be Nashana. Not she dissolves. So it's another way of thinking, a more gentle. So the ideas of good and bad and virtue and vice will also be dissolved. I may have told the story, but it's a good place. Remembering a couple weeks ago, Swami Bhajanananda was here on this asana, and one year Mahakumbh Mela. When was the last Mahakumbh Mela? No, the first Mahakumbh Mela that I went to. What year was that?
2001.
In 2001, Mahakumbh Mela, I had done a thing called Kalpavas. Kalpavas is very good because it's very merit. She's Punyada. It gives great merit. Kalpavas is you for 1 month. You don't leave the bank of the Ganga. And you take a bath in the Sangam every day for 1 month. You camp by living, right? I didn't camp, but our ashram is in the Sangam, so it's the same. It's camping. Our ashram is camping. Camping is easier than our ashram. It's definitely camping, right? So 1 month it's called Kalpavas, the vow of, because it says that's so it destroys the sins of an age, of a kalpa. Right, so one kalpavas destroys the sins of an age, right? It's so merit-producing that it destroys the sins of an age, right? And so we went to bathe in the Ganga, and the final day, I was very happy, And he that year I went with Swamiji. He goes for Ganga bath every day, and like little children, we're like thrilled. And I said, Swamiji, our sins are destroyed, right? Just see, our sins are destroyed, right? He says, yes, your sins are destroyed, leaving your merit, that would lead to rebirth. And in the physical body and untold suffering. Talk about Vedantas, they're very hard to get around. the cold logic of Vedantic Swami, This is Swami. What can we do then? Because obviously bathing in the Ganga didn't help me attain realization at all, apparently, according to him. This could lead to leaving my punya, would lead to auspicious births, which become rich and get healthy. Then I'll do more sin and get rich and healthy. Nothing go wrong with being rich and healthy. That's no guaranteed. Usually it's a disqualification according to Jesus, right? Easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle. So what do we do? He said, there's nothing you can do. Great. It was a long, cold month, to be told. It didn't help me at all towards self-realization. Right? But his point, he was half joking. If you know his personality, you never know if he's being serious or joking, right? He's at the same time. He says, but actually, that's the truth, actually. Actually, part of why we bathe in the Ganga, to do these meritorious things, to destroy it, because we become clear a little bit, right? And in an auspicious environment, in that Punya-laya, and the place, it's called Punya-titi, it's a very meritorious, even being there is a result of merit and merit producing, in that holy place, in that powerful positive place, one can hopefully see that which is beyond. The Punya-laya, even the distinction of Punya and Papa can be overcome. Punya-laya. Laya also means indifferent, right? So she's indifferent to good and bad. So that's another thing. We can see a mother love for her child, good or bad child, doesn't matter. A child is child. Of course, when a mother sees a child behaving well, the pride comes, right? But even a child misbehaves, that's also love. It's almost another aspect of love comes from such a mother, when a misbehaved child, right? Holy Mother said, "I am the mother of the virtuous and the mother of the wicked." Right? She says, everybody's my child. Right? She sees everyone equally. Of course, she's very happy when her child does well, naturally, right? But if a child's not doing well, love is still there. She's a mother of both. So she's beyond or indifferent to punya, right? Also, laya also has a kind of a secondary meaning of that it part of like a manifestation, like dance and rhythm. So Punya-laya, she is the dance of like this, Punya like that. And then next name is Punya-deha. So deha means body, right, or form, right, deha. So whose body is made of merit, I guess you could say, right? Or whose body, if again, is merit producing, thinking of her, touching her, is very meritorious, right? Changes. What does it mean? It changes karma. You go to a temple. This is Punya-dam. This is Punya-laya, right? This is you see. This is everything here is auspicious. It's the result of punya that you came here, right? Right. Many scriptures says that how many good lives of auspicious activity you did, how many people you fed, how many like that, in order to even see such a place, right? The scripture like this here. I'm going to give you a hint. This is a crystal Shivalingam. It says in the scriptures, thousands of lives of auspicious merit and sadhana and feeding the people and doing good, right? To even see a crystal Shivalingam, right? Maybe that's exaggerated praise, trying to sell crystal Shivalingams, I read it on crystalshivalingams.com. I didn't get to win a very good price, Right. These are the verses like that in text, right? So what does that mean? Of course, it makes you want one, or makes you appreciate the value of seeing a crystal Shivalingam, right? But what could be the value then of worshiping a crystal Shivalingam, or meditating, or understanding what it actually is? 1,000 times more, right? So by punya, one comes in contact with a holy place, a holy deity, a holy person, holy mantra, holy image, holy fire, right? How much more when one worships and is transformed by it, So it's by merit we attain it, and and it produces tremendous. It changes. You can see by our karma, so much good karma to come to a holy place or a holy person, to hear a mantra, hear a teaching like that. Now, that holy place, that holy person, that holy mantra, that holy teaching, that completely transform us. 1,000 times more. What time is it now? I'm sure I'm trying to see how fast I should say the last name.
6:20.
Certainly, I should be very fast. Punya-deha. We talked about something today. I wanted to bring it up. Well, about transfer of merit. They're talking about merit. Just before I finish off the final couple names. In Buddhism and Hinduism, Buddhism has a term they call transfer of merit, right? Punya, and where somebody you can actually request monks and things like that to do a period of name recitation. They'll do an hour of chanting of a mantra, and with the idea that it would be transferred to somebody who's sick or somebody who's passed away. The merit that's produced by that action, by holy action, is then given to somebody's benefit, right? And usually in common understanding of religion, we pray for others, right? Praying for people is important, right? And we were kind of joking. It's like, it's like, oh Lord, please help, this person is sick, or this person needs a job, please help them, right? And Ma thinking, I never, like that person asked me. He asked really nice, so I guess I'll give him a job, right? Actually, getting the job is a result of, or getting health, is a result of karma, right? Right? But the very act of praying to God for somebody is itself meritorious. And you're doing it for somebody, so the merit will go to somebody. Thinking of God is meritorious. It produces punya, right? And praying for God for somebody, automatically you're transferring that merit like that. So that's the mathematical dynamics of it, the cause and effect dynamics of praying for somebody. If that's the case, then doing something now, like Swami Chidananda, I was in a group that asked him, how do we pray for people? People say, oh, very easy. You say, Lord, I'm going to chant 108 Mahamrityunjaya mantras or Hare Krishna Mahamantra, whatever the thing is, for such and such a person's health, or such a person's safety, or for the safe release of their soul, or the Atma Shanti of somebody, and then you do it, right? You say you're going to do it's for them, and then you do some sadhana, because that sadhana is it produces Mahamrityunjaya. These mantras are tremendous. Like I just. One great soul used to be part of the San Diego Hare Krishna community, passed away. From cancer. She died, and but the devotees, all the different devotees, were having groups of doing kirtan. They're meeting during her treatment, and also after her passing. They're get together. There's a kirtan at somebody's house for such and such a devotee. Right. What are they doing? They're doing that. How much power comes from the chanting of the mantra, and then they're doing it for somebody. It's an also idea of transfer of merit. Something that we don't always think of. We don't think of merit as something, right?
The sadhana we do is as divided into thirds.
Oh yes. I learned this from Ayappa Swami, the Tantric Swamiji who comes here sometimes, who helped me, who built the Kali Yantra. We have the three-dimensional Kali Yantra. But years ago he gave a talk here, and he made a point, and it really struck in my mind. And I found it in other places also, but I learned it from him. So when you do sadhana, right, the effect, the punya, if you could say, if you were to say. See, the problem is punya can be materially. We would think it's not just we're trying to think of it more spiritually, the spiritual effect of something, not just a good and bad effect. But when you do some sadhana, spiritual practices, a third of it stays with the person doing the sadhana. A third of it stays in the place where the sadhana is done, right? And a third of it goes to others to whom you are connected, right? So, for instance, it goes, a saint's practice goes to his disciples, right? A disciple's practice goes to his guru, or her guru, right? There's something like, there's even tradition, like in the Ramakrishna tradition, the mala of 108 malas, the last 8 is considered for the guru. You only count 100. Right. When you count, like I have to do 1,000 mantras. You don't say, well, 1,000 mantras is really, it's like 9 malas and a little, you think 10 malas. Those extra 8, those are given to the guru or given to others. There's some idea that so when you do the effect stays in the place. So Ramakrishna said a holy place is holy not only because of it being holy, but the devotees make it holy. The devotees coming and praying and their sadhana and japa, even though people are praying, even if people go, Ma, please help me, please help my family. Ma will help them and help their family. But even those prayers, even though it may not be the highest devotional prayer, it also charges a place, right? Places become surcharged with that devotional fervor, and when you go to the Kumbh Mela in Allahabad or anytime you go to Sangam, you realize that we have faith that the water of the Ganga is holy. We don't even know if it's Ganga water anymore. Well, I know one Pandit, a professor at the university, foremost authority on Kumbh Mela, right? Professor and a Pandit. He says, I don't go in that water anymore. It's not water. It's not even Ganga water. Right? It's all dirty for the first place, but also that he knows like which dam has been closed. And it's like by scriptural definition, this river and this river you mean Ganga. That river is not hitching it, so it's not even Ganga. It's water. Right? He says, but I go and I sleep on the sands here, right? Because for thousands of years the Ganga flowed here. And for thousands of years, pilgrims have come there to do tapasya and prayer, and the sadhus and pilgrims. The very sand is making the water holy. The water used to make the sand holy, right? Now the devotees, the sages who come here, and the very sand is holy, Right, that's the idea that the place will get charged by a place, and the people to whom you're connected to. That's part of the transfer. You can transfer all the merit, right? But also you can just, and so we say that when somebody attains self-realization, 10 generations of their family are liberated. So the scripture says, right? There's connections like that, right? And we have a prayer. Swamiji made a prayer to Thakur, and then Om Hrim Bhritam, it says, all of your austerities are practiced for our sake, right? Because he struggled to realize God. He was God, and he was realized. Right, but he played that Leela of trying to realize God, in a certain sense to show us, perhaps, but also the sadhana he did unleashed, it changed an age, right? It changed the world. We're here because of his sadhana, So whether or not him crying to Divine Mother was for his benefit or it's hard to say. Swamiji said it's all for our benefit. He'd practice all these sadhanas for our benefit. And maybe even taking birth in a world where he would seem to forget God and try to find God is for our benefit. Right, so this is part of the transfer, how merit works. So Punya-laya, Punya-deha, Punya-sloka. Shloka means verse, right? And so, and Punya-sloka, there's a verse, Uttama-sloka and Punya-sloka. This verse, this line comes in so many scriptures. In the Puranas, it's throughout, the devotional line. It often means you are praised by meritorious verses. By beautiful by holy verses, right? So you are praised in the scriptures. You are praised in hymns like this. Uttama-sloka, by topmost verses, right? By the best verses like this, right? But it also here has been interpreted by yogis to be you are the meritorious utterance. You are the sloka coming from. You are the virtue-producing verse, speech, holy speech. When you chant a mantra, when you say something, even speaking about God like that, you are that auspicious. People can curse with their words and bless. You are the words of blessings. You are that punya-sloka, right? Also in the Bhagavatam, there's a line that describes in the Kapila Gita. Lord Kapila is speaking to his mother Devahuti, and it's glorifying God's form. How to meditate on God, sit on a proper asana, sit with your back straight, do proper pranayama. Bring the mind in, and then describes how to visualize on vision of Lord Vishnu with a yellow cloth and certain gems and like that. It says, and it uses the word Punya-sloka. But here, not to describe him, to describe the devotees. Punya-sloka means devotees. And he says like Prahlad, like North Star. Dhruva, Prahlad, like these great devotees, these are Punya-sloka. Right. These are because everything the devotee only speaks of God. The speech about God means devotees. God doesn't have to speak auspicious things. We speak different things, right? And so the devotee of God is also considered God, right? The devotee is God's action, God's speech, right? And also non-considered. And Thakur said, Bhagavata Bhakta Bhagavan, the devotee in God and the scriptures, the spoken word of God. God himself and the devotees are one and the same. And then the final, it slightly changes his Pavini. So where's my original verse here? Smasana-vasini Punyada Kula-pandita, Punya-laya, Punya-deha, Punya-sloka, cha, Pavini. Pavini is a little bit of a jump start to the next verse, which we'll talk in a couple of weeks. But Pavini means, I've seen it translated, it's translated as breeze. So it's in the middle of the home, you are a gentle breeze, right? Pavana means air, breeze like pavana. But actually it's a little tricky because pavana for air is pavana with a long A. This is pavana. No, it's pavana. Pavana was a short A, means air, like pavana sutta, pavana, the son of the wind, right? Pavana, this is with a long A, right? But they share meanings even with a different letter. Right, it does mean wind. It means breeze, like this, but not in the obvious way, like pavan means breath, right? But it means purifier, patita pavana, we say, right? The savior or the purifier of the fallen or the sinful, right? So no matter punya or not punya, sinful or virtuous, even if we're not perfect, we invoke the new name for the Lord, the one who saves the fallen people like us, Patita pavana. Pavanam here means purifier, right? But in the Gita it says pavana pavatam asmihi. I am among purifiers. I am wind, right? But here amongst purifiers I am wind. So the connection between pavana and pavana is clearly shown. Among purifying agents, I am the wind. So, Pavini, it's a feminine form, means she who's a purifier. So again, between Punya and Papa, she removes our pap and creates like this. She is. It means clean. It means holy. Actually, interesting. Pavini also means Tulsi. One of Tulsi's name is Pavini, right? Because she's so pure. She's the purest of all plants, the queen of all plants, and anything she touches becomes clean, right? Pavini also means Siddha, one who's perfect, right? A perfected being is Pavini. So she's perfect, and those who meditate are perfect. Siddha. But it also means fire, right? Because fire also purifies everything. Fire and wind purifies everything. So back to the name of the Kula-pandita, right? And the Kula Marg, she is, and that Vayu, Mahavayu, one of the names for Kundalini, Thakur uses Mahavayu, I think, right? Mm-hmm. This powerful wind. Right, this powerful, this fire, this pure. So it could also is also her, how is she the purifier? How does she give people perfection? How does she clean, purify, like through this Mahavayu, this inner current? When she's awake, everything becomes transformed and purified. Smasana-vasini Punya-deha, Punyada Kula-pandita, Punya-laya Punya-deha, Punya-sloka to Pavini. Well, that is verse 17, and those were names 116 through 122 for those who are following along at home. Any questions or comments? I only got half the things I wanted to say, and 1/3 of the thing I wanted to read is Swami Vivekananda. This is a great talk of Swami Vivekananda, and there's so many things. Because actually, I just bring one point. I won't read it, but Swamiji, he's sometimes he's used the Practical Vedanta number 1, part 1. To me, it corrects so many things that we sometimes, the mistakes we make using and justifying our behavior by quoting Swami Vivekananda. Well, Swamiji did this, or Swamiji said that, and Swamiji said this, and therefore we can get away with anything. And this one, point for point. Maybe, I don't know if he already heard people doing all kinds of crazy things and saying Swamiji said, right, or whatever. But it's many important points are there. And one of them he says, a little while ago I talked about sin, right? About you couldn't consider yourself a sinner. Right, and so he said, "Oh, we shouldn't say we're not sinners. We should never say like that. We do nothing wrong. The soul's ever perfect. It's true, the soul's ever perfect like that." But he says, actually, there are such things as sin. We call them mistakes. Wrong actions lead to painful results. Those painful results can thwart our spiritual life. He says, but the thing is, he says that we all know our sickness, right? We all know what's wrong with us. If we look in our heart, we don't have to get all repentant about it. We know the things that are holding us back. We know the things we're struggling with, right? They're not that complicated. We can come up with everything. So, but to focus on sickness does not help somebody get better, right? To dwell on it, right? He says better dwell on health, dwell on your eternal spiritual nature, dwell on you are the reservoir of infinite power. You are one with God. It's like that. That is life-giving, health-giving. Corrects the mistakes in the mind. Simply dwelling on mistakes does not help the mind. Right, so it's not that we think, it's not that anything goes and nothing has a result because we're perfect and everything's fine, there's no such thing as sin. That's not true, right? But we shouldn't focus on it. That's another important point to Swami. One of the points he makes in this talk, which I think is to me was very important. ¿Cómo está adentro? Okay, she's saying it's full. In 2 languages, we know the inside is full. Thank you for your kind attention. We'll continue next time. More exciting news about Kali. Repent. Actually, we had so many more things to say about this thing because this is such a big topic, Oh, all right. Kula. Okay. All right. Govinda. Jai Thakur, Jai Ma. Battery after that.